Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ. Thank you very much for being here. I'm cracking up in the you guys in the chat before the show started. Uh, th- Thank you very much for doing the homework since we are ending our show today on Friday, this being Future Friday, as we end our week. John Wick week. Yeah, of course, we're going to talk about science fiction and modern gaming. Of course, with modern day, it goes hand in hand with the John Wick movies. But today is reserved for those of us that love science fiction, modern gaming, even slightly less modern gaming, Victorian era, and that kind of thing. I don't know how much John Wick would fit into the Victorian era, but you know, with a little bit of thought, here in the Seat of the Pan Studios, why not? Why not? Okay. Oh man. Looking into, let's see what you guys have to say, because it seems like you're already having a pretty hefty conversation already. Currently mulling over what we have been talking about with my month assassination campaign idea to make a short campaign using Delta Green. Ooh, considering other systems if you have, since in the future Friday, I realized that our Electrum idea could still apply. Imagine having special key cards with Electrum strips that can access certain computers. For those who don't know, there's an old game called Paranoia, and it had a game mechanic concept where you could get these pass cards. It was science fiction, and I think you had six clones. And in the game, players could fight against each other and kill off each other's clones. And in Paranoia, you could get these pass cards, whatever. But let me set the table first. Okay, John Wick's very high class, very social, very civilized individuals who engage in pretty barbaric activities. So, in setting this table, since the beginning of this week, we've been talking about John Wick and the whole world. Of course, the Continental, and then the outside part of that in terms of like we started our conversation with what are the gold coins worth, and realizing that they're not worth any monetary value. What they are favors, they're thank yous, they are signs of respect. And if you take a look at the movies, John Wick pays hands gold coins to individuals and passes them along to people he respects, whereas everyone else, all the bad guys, are paid in like cash and money. You don't see gold coins used as an incentive to get other assassins to try to kill John Wick. They still spend things on money. The gold coins are the civilized way that very brutal individuals are able to communicate with each other in terms of I trust you and you trust me, and it's pretty cool. Mike Gould says Victorian era uh, would work. You wouldn't have automatic weapons outside the Gatling gun, but you would have pistols, knives, swords, rifles, and the like. It's John Wick, but with top hats. Yeah, and I guess you would have tension build by how fast you could reload various Victorian uh, Victorian era weaponry. Like, do would you have cartridges, or would you go back to the one shot pistol and then you have to reload it with the gunpowder first and then pack it down and put the like I don't know. But it would make for some interesting showdowns, right? Especially because a lot of those pistols weren't grooved, so the lead shot would just come out and like random get blasted into random directions. Oh man, the Ant King says watching these movies made me think of the comic Lone Wolf and Cub. Absolutely, absolutely. Really, really, this organization can fit into any setting, any time frame. I absolutely agree with you. And you know, the very beginning of the John Wick series, we see the lone wolf cub situation where he gets the puppy, and a little bit ridiculously, he doesn't realize what the puppy can eat, right? And he's just like, "You're going to sleep on this pillow," and you're like, "Puppies aren't going to do that. They're going to jump on your face and lick you to wake you up." And it's a little bit ridiculous. Like he doesn't really know what puppy food is. Like, come on. But it was silly because lone the idea of lone wolf and cub is you have a warrior who is so good at being a warrior that they don't have any other skills like child rearing skills or um, he's so far into death that he doesn't understand what life is, and the puppy brings him back to life essentially, right? Yeah, Michael says cartridges would exist. Yes, yeah, because they weren't exact. I suppose you could claim that they were modern day bullets, but kind of not like that. So yeah, Zamar says I have paranoia. Actually, that would be great for running a great one shot. I might actually use that. Thanks. Yeah, yeah, yeah. If you need to know about old people stuff, tune into the show. No, but in all honesty, yeah, those are some pretty interesting things. I like that, and I think I like the concept of we've been talking about the high table and all of the levels of the evil organizations where you have the adjudicator come in and then the high table like sends out messages for these other assassins and such. And while of course we're watching a movie, it's on the nose. I think it really fits for role playing games because that way, listen, we don't have to navigate around language that we're trying to say or not trying to say something. It's pretty much on the board. Like, hey, player characters, here's the bad guys way up here that you can't touch, and here are all the lackeys in between. And if it means you got to fight your way up the castle steps, of figuratively or literally, then that's just the way it is. Yep. Yeah, yeah. Deadman says could be like the pickle gun, a 2-inch cannon that uses a revolver-like drum to hold the ammo. Oh, there are some wild Victorian era weaponry out there. Like oh man, yeah. And Wayne says they had breech-loaded rifles. Yeah, and one of the things I think people are uh, um, um, misaligned, where just because firearms existed, people stopped using melee weapons, which wasn't really the case. It was basically like if you put an army of people with firearms, that's more dangerous than one individual. But pirates used to outfit themselves with multiple pistols because they knew they couldn't keep reloading and stuff. So yeah, I guess it does fit for Victorian era. Uh, Mike says the Victorian era is also the Wild West era. It's also the American Civil War era. Yep, and it's the reopening of Japan era. Yes, cartridges exist. Yeah. What else was it? It was what what's the term? It was uh Wild West exploration, Japanese, and something else all existed basically at the same time. Civil War. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I wonder why no one's ever really made a role playing game where all like 4 eras plus whatever else is happening around the world combined together, even though it wasn't happening at that time. Could be. The Yanking says Victorian actually works. The gold coins could be like pirate the blooms, and you could easily have an international web even then. Yeah, well, yeah, maybe a little slower, but it was pretty international in a wider scope, right? Like with the piracy and sailing culture, trying to figure out, there was an interest in could you sail around the world, does the ocean continue all the way around the world, and people trying to find out. And of course Christopher Columbus, um and the individuals, explorers at large, trying to do that and trying to achieve that. Mike says the Schofield revolver not only had cartridges but would eject all 6 cartridges and allowed a quick reload. If I'm not mistaken, weren't though a lot of those weapons, they didn't have a oh, I can't remember. I don't know all the terminology, but essentially you it had a hinge where you would tilt it. The hinge would allow you to open the gun completely to eject all the cartridges and stuff, as opposed to how modern day revolvers are, where the it's not the barrel. Doesn't matter. It doesn't. We're talking about something. Mike says this is also era the Zulu War cartridge rifles existed. Ah, yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, they didn't have very long magazines until, like, that was until modern day. Zamar says we still use melee weapons today in the U.S. Army, from our trench tools to to still having bayonets, attachments, rifles, to having daggers as part of the standard gear. And yes, we still have trench tools. Yeah, what is the edged the edged shovel is technically like a battle axe of sorts, and I think even battle axes are given to like special forces um, special forces units and things like that. So yeah, absolutely. And of course, we're talking gun fu, right? Like John Wick didn't invent gun fu. There's a bunch of other movies out there that you had the same thing. Equilibrium is probably one of the known. Uh, um, Equilibrium, it probably is the epitome of gun fu because it literally mentions, well, gun kata in it, which is gun fu, gun katas. One's Japanese, one's Chinese, but it doesn't matter. Um, there's a movie called Shoot 'Em Up that deals with that. That's far more closer to John Woo movies, which had a lot of gun fu in them, as well as the movie Wanted. Also, man, I should design a role playing game around that, about like bending bullets and like um, melee combat with that kind of thing. Yeah, it'd be kind of cool. Okay, so as we go for our modern era, the John Wick movies have certain realities of the world that don't exist today. And this is one of the things, when it comes to game design, that I think is very important. And that's basically like when you design your game and design your world. We're having our session zero to express to the players, here's the reality of the world. Now, it may not be our reality, but the reality of this world involves certain things. For example, if I can go completely opposite to John Wick, let's talk about like Kids on Bikes, or Tales from the Loop, which are both games where you play children. And right up front, when you open the game book, it tells you right up front that adults are oblivious and are ineffective in helping you solve your issues, because the game is about kids riding on their bikes, getting involved in situations and solving it on their own. You can't in reality, it would be much more efficient for any type of TV show or movie where kids are involved, for them to stop, go to the police or the adults, and let the adults handle it. But the point is for the kids to handle it. Something that happens in the John Wick movies is that there is an underground of assassins. There's a whole culture of assassins, and regular society will be limited, maybe not even be involved in the actions of the assassins. For example, except for Jimmy, you really don't see any police officers show up. You don't see emergency services. Um, there are crowds of people, but for the most part, most crowds of people are relatively oblivious to everything that's going on in the world. And while it seems a little bit ridiculous that you have, car chases and gunfights and maybe a limited value on explosives and things like that. You see a lot of dead bodies and whatnot. John Wick, putting half a thousand people into the ground. Emergency services really don't show up, do they? Deadman says FG42 was designed by the Germans pre World War II, and it had 20-round magazine. The MG42 had a belt feed ammo system, and it was designed at the same time as the FG42. Yeah. Um, and we all know when it comes to weaponry and things, a lot of those are like the AK-47. It may not be the most accurate thing in the world, but it was probably the easiest to take apart. It survived all elements, and it was the easiest to train people on. So it's not all about like the quote of what is the best firearm is nebulous at best. Um, mm, mm, mm. Oop, there we go. It moved a little bit. All right. The Ink King says there's an RPG that was made recently, Righteous Blood and Ruthless Blades, designed around Chinese wuxia. You could easily retool it to be about Victorian international assassins. Yeah, yeah. I got to check out Righteous Blood and Ruthless Blades. I never heard of it. Never heard of it. I mean, Blades in the Dark is kind of like that, although it leans more towards heists rather than like actual like, I mean, and it is Victorian era, less less so with the open gunfighting. It's more or less like avoiding the stresses of having such a thing. But I guess you could describe it that way if you wanted to. Ugh. Zamara's like, use Tales from the Loop. Go full. Ouch. Go full Japan and make them child soldiers. Thank you, anime. Yeah. Yeah. What what was it? I can't remember the live action version of what the Hunger Games was that they did in Japan. Oof, ooh. They don't mind putting kids in brutal situations. Kids splash with blood. Oof, pretty nasty stuff. If you can find it. Thomas Anderson says so. Basically, most of what the game is about is a batch of like 6 foot tall rabbits that no one can even see, but those in the culture of the game. Huh? Are you talking about uh um um uh, Donnie Darko? John Wick Wild West gunfighter is completely acceptable. Yeah, 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 yeah. Mm-mm-mm. The not being able to see it if you are a regular person seems like it would fit well with that kind of game. The game Cult. Oh, there's an oldie but goodie Cult. Yeah, where you to make it a long story short, you play a character who can see the dark things that bump in the night, but because you can see them, they can see you. And there's a dark world that exists parallel to ours, and normal people don't see it. They feel the um the coldness run down their back. They may see things out of their peripheral vision, or wake up in the middle of the night because they feel something over their bed, but they don't see everything. But you do. Yeah. Oh yeah. Mm-mm-mm. Yeah, you guys going down the manga trail. Oh, okay. Thomas Ayers explained himself. Yep. Oh, I think I agree with you. Yeah, the Donnie Darko got that idea from that. Yeah, battle royale. That's it. Thank you, Dead Man. It was battle royale. That's it. Where the kids have to fight. Mm-mm-mm. Yeah. Mm-mm-mm. Yeah. Well, listen, we all like to, especially here in the states. We are literally the melting pot. So we borrow slash steal, or at least give an homage to things from around the world that are really great. Like we're getting a lot of our media from reskinning what Korean television and movies and things like that. Yeah, and as far as yep, both of you guys are on the same page. All right, so I think something else that is pretty interesting about the John Wick movies that would be in contention with science fiction is the fact that in the John Wick movies, even for modern day standards, they're using old technology, rotary phones, landlines. They're using paper, stamping paper, and things like that, pagers, uh, gold coins, and instead of paper money, instead of electronic transfers and things of that nature. Although, like I said, the gold coins aren't don't have a monetary value. They actually have more of a social value. There's literally a social currency. But in the far future, I could still see that still applying where maybe there's like I'm going to call them the paragon conflicts or something where there are these battles happening in the background in a high-tech society where the people are using low-tech methods to communicate with each other and only when necessary using high-tech methods. So for example, maybe they are using old style firearms in a place where they have energy weapons. Maybe the individuals are using um, maybe old style techniques to communicate with each other, like using chalk on park benches and things like that, folded up pieces of paper slid under doors, and all that kind of business. Where in this far future, people that are unplugged, even today there are people who are more and more trying to unplug themselves from a global network of our interactions. As AI takes to starts to roll forward, like I mentioned before about let's take a look into Chat GPT for next week maybe and see how it works. Like I said, I don't know how it's going to work or whether most of you are like I mean, you could be giving me the middle finger as well, which is perfectly fine. But is that the kind of thing that people want, or are people going like, listen, I'm just going to unplug from all this and and whatnot. I even made up at one point like um, a digital disease that people might obtain where they their digital footprint starts to erase because of the disease that they have, which would be kind of strange. It's not physical disease, but it'd be kind of weird to like have your even today, if your digital footprint started to disappear, you would have a lot of problems in terms of navigating society because you wouldn't have a license, you wouldn't have credit cards. It would be difficult for you to prove who you are without a digital footprint. TA says, I wonder how the whole John Wick culture would react to a hive of superhuman insect human hybrids. You're going way into like genetic engineering and aliens and things like that. But maybe it would work. Although I think people would be put pretty upset. It's like, hey, we're in the middle of having alien invasion. Stop trying to kill each other, you damn assassins. We could use you as an army or something. Yes, see, funny, yeah. Well, if it ain't American, it's not cultural appropriation. I mean, theft. I mean, appreciation. Sorry, cultural appreciation. Theft. Yeah. Hey, but that's it's all context, right? Like things aren't appropriated unless unless people the context of it is to specifically steal something. If you grow up or appreciate another culture, that's there's nothing wrong with that. Even though to, I don't know, people love gatekeeping today because we're full of fear. So TA says basically something like maybe they try to obtain skills from somehow like DNA hijacking. Ooh, or even odder still, that extremely good assassins might be escapee mutants from the hive, like Hellstrom's hive. Yeah, yeah. Isn't a future John Wick just Mandalorian? Ooh. Okay, so I could see there being like a clash between like I refuse to modify my DNA where there's others who are like boosting their reflexes through like cybernetic implants and such like Cyberpunk, Shadowrun, which like Deadman mentioned the other day, the end of the stream yesterday was just like, wait a minute, Shadowrun and Cyberpunk perfectly fits in with John Wick, and of course we do have an overlap because we have Cyberpunk 2077 with Keanu Reeves playing one of the NPCs in the game and whatnot. So there is a little bit of a connection there. Yeah, Mandalorian definitely is that way. Mm-mm-mm. Like being normal looking and the hive humans, but still have lots of their advanced strength and speed, etc. You know what? You essentially like that might be one of a number of things. Like maybe humanity has contacted, been in contact with alien species, or maybe even an alien government made up of a number of species, and the pure humans are like like I'm not going to change the way I am to be something else. Seriously, Will. Centered around Will Smith. Yeah, so for those who don't know the beginning, and you could take a look at the chat, but the beginning of it was like making role playing games based around specific individuals, and all the air quotes character classes are all the individuals played by that person, like seriously Will or seriously Ryan, like Ryan Gosling or something, or like seriously Keanu. You get to play all their roles that they've played in movies. It'd be pretty interesting though, especially if you included some of their more dramatic roles. Like who wants to play the character that Will Smith played in Pursuit of Happiness, right? Versus what's the one where he's a genetic clone of himself? I can't remember it. Gemini Man. Yeah. Mm-mm-mm. No way to send there's no way to send signals through it, so they just send the pod out like those air vacuum systems at banks. Your vacuum tubes, yeah, yeah. I think Disney Disney World still uses vacuum tubes to send like trash and debris and things like that throughout the underground of the park system. If I'm not mistaken, I think they still use it. It was created back in like the '60s. N King says, imagine a laminated badge with an electrum strip, but it causes any unlicensed weapons to seize and refuse to fire. Ooh. Or there's an old 60s movie where instead of having prisons and court systems and such, like they would use AI systems to be the judge, jury, executioner, or basically judge and jury. And individuals sent for execution could then become bounty hunters who ran the streets to hunt down other people to be executed so that you could still have your own life, even though you might be rolled into the execution randomization thing where you went to get another bounty hunter. So you might be a bounty hunted by other bounty hunters in the streets. And I remember a scene from it, and I don't even remember the name of this movie, but basically a guy was driving his car, ran up on a curb, shot somebody in the street. Cop shows up. The guy who did the murder showed his badge, and it was like, "Oh, you're one of those bounty hunter killers." But then the cop stops him and says, "I got to give you a ticket for your car because you parked illegally." And it was pretty silly. It was dumb, but it was like it was this above ground underground of killers killing other killers in this futuristic war. But the movie happened in like the 60s, so it had all the 60s era like fedora hats and things like that, sharkskin suits. Pretty silly. Zamar says, a war and invasion is the perfect time for an assassination. Yeah, especially at the beginning and end edge of it when the chaos is at full tilt. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because what better way to uh, there's no better time, unfortunately, to gather power than at the beginning and end of a conflict, because then people start to look around, and in many ways they really don't have time to worry about the people getting killed. They got to worry about larger issues, and that's a thing that happens in real life. The beginning of a war and end of a war, people get assassinated pretty regularly, because everyone's eyes is looking up in the sky, looking at the amazing thing that's happening, and then at the end of a conflict, everyone's coming out of the ashes and worrying about themselves. And no, all hail to you there, Death Angel. I appreciate it. Hail, the gang's all here. What the heck do we care? What the heck do we care? The gang's all here. Uh, that's a throwback line to something someone would say in a certain show about a greatest American hero. Mm. Death Angel says, "Oh, come on! I want to be Will in Independence Day." Yeah, punching aliens in the face and having all those great one-liners. Although we were talking about Victorian era, the Wild West. I don't know. That Will Smith would be kind of cool to play too. Uh, Although maybe somebody might have to, if you lose all your hit points, you might have to play the Will Smith that walks up on stage and smacks people. uh, boom, boom, boom. TA says, what would be more bizarre is that the insect-like humans are not actually alien, but rather some sort of secret sect that involved breeding, like processes that led to their being so alien-like. Well, you know what? You never know. Maybe there is the possibility, and I think this was slightly used in X-Files, that aliens um that aliens invade planets by sending signals or like DNA or something rather than arriving in big giant ships. Heck, if aliens sent us the plans for high tech technologies and then we started using them for them to then exploit that technology against us, genetic modification, I think perfectly fits into that. Um, mm, mm, mm. Oh man, but Death Angel says I've been all throughout the tunnels at Disney World, Epcot, and what used to be called Downtown Disney. It used to be downtown and West Side. I don't know what it's called currently, but yeah, there's all kinds of tunnels and things. Actually, pretty brilliantly designed, to be honest with you. Which is why, strangely enough, Disney World in the middle of Florida isn't like overrun by mosquitoes because it's built on top of a giant swamp, and you're actually walking on the second floor of a giant wide building. It's pretty cool. Mufa says, I don't know about this John Wick in the future thing. Somehow assassin Bitcoin doesn't have the same impact. Yeah, well, yeah. I think I think you could add some elements to it in the sense of like maybe there are like data cores that from a past era where the characters could try to they could be going on missions to find these data cores that are very valuable, and they're basically killing each other to get to them. Or you may have different planets be the havens of different organizations, and much like Altered Carbon would be a closer element to John Wick, especially since the main character, Takeshi Kovacs, and I know, relax with the pronunciation. Takashi character is basically a gunman who's like a John Wick style character, super high reflexes, martial arts expert, you know, perfectly accurate with firearms. um, you know, just his brain is just re-sleeved into different types of bodies. So I think John Wick could fit in that, especially if the PCs play characters that have been killed and now they are re-sleeved, reconstituted, or reinstanced into other biological bodies to go after the people who killed them like a week ago or whatever. Deadman says the trash removal system at Disney World has 17 collection points and an underground system of vacuum tubes that suck trash at 60 miles an hour to a compactor every 15 minutes. Yep, that's how they keep how they keep all the trash out of the parks. So you don't see very often the very smelly giant sized barrels that most other um park systems have, which in a far future setting might be a good place for PCs to hide, getting into one of those trash capsule tubes to get sucked across a vacuum tube to go from one place to another. The modern version of D&D characters, traveling through a sewer system or something. Death Angel say didn't find the alleged cryogenically preserved head of Walt. Yeah, pretty. For those who don't know, Walt Disney allegedly cryo has his head cryogenically preserved so that when technology gets to the point where they can resurrect human beings, that he will come back and live in, I don't know, Celebration or something like that. Yeah, the true lawful good cop. Yep. Thank you for killing the killer, but I must arrest you for murder now. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. It's pretty. I don't know the name of the movie, and I don't even know if I'll ever find the name of that movie, but it was pretty interesting where I think there was a love interest where this guy, falls for a young lady, didn't realize that she's part of this bounty hunter group, and then he ends up pulling her name to be killed, and she pulls his name and stuff. Yeah. Just saying, say, oh man, I like Chris Rock. Hey man, you're the one that crit failed. uh, yeah, we're starting to talk about how dictators use revolution to rise to power. That you know what? That might be the specific reason why we might need these strange, unaligned, assassins roaming the world, because maybe they are the unfortunate byproduct of needing to have something to control the narrative, right? Like in a high tech society where you have technology enabling dictators to control whole communities. I'm looking at you, China, with your reputation system. Sorry, but having that kind of thing exist, maybe these leagues of assassins are the people that you can hire to help stop such a thing. Basically, like Assassin's Creed, the assassins become the heroes, even though they're doing despicable things, and being able to, I don't know, cryogenically release the assassins out so that they can attack people, kind of like Winter Soldier, or um, beam their neural network, a la our Eclipse Phase or Altered Carbon, where the PCs wake up, but they wake up in a body that they don't recognize, and they have to navigate around like, oh, I just woke up on I just got beamed from Saturn back to Mars, and now I'm in Oh, well, I was in a male body, now it's female, and I've got dark hair. I had blonde hair before, and I've got witch modifications in my body, and then you have to like navigate the world that way. I think that'd be kind of cool. Mm-mm-mm. T- I was wondering about that show. I didn't watch. I only watched like 3 or 4 episodes. Anyway, Thomas Anderson says they kind of hinted at the aliens in the Colony TV show were actually possibly from Earth and human generated too. I didn't know about that. For those who don't know, the Colony TV show was you had main characters in a where supposedly aliens came to Earth and erected these walls, and the walls separated one community from another. And all you know that there was a beam in the sky and maybe human beings were lifted up into space and that was it. And so you had like downtrodden ghetto type neighborhoods, and then you had high class neighborhoods, and humans were trying to figure out how to go over, through, or underneath the walls that were separating each of the communities. And there was some like um very chaotic rules as to which humans could go where and how many were taken up into space, and were they being taken up to space because they were ascending to a different plane of existence, or were they taken up in space and being used as beef jerky for humans? You didn't really know. And I like the concept. I just couldn't get into the show. Maybe I'll take another look at it. Um, Thinking about the themes of John Wick, would the High Council space stations and starships be extremely religious looking, such as golden angels everywhere? Well, John, the aesthetics in John Wick were very ancient like. I mean, yes, there were some high tech uh, chrome and steel buildings, but there was always blended with like old style weaponry, like a very ancient thing. I could see that. I could see that very much like, instead of space stations looking like spindles, they might look like cathedrals. Or, um, you go to Mars and you're thinking, oh, it's going to be a big giant dome city, but you see it's the dome is made out of, it looks like stained glass. And when you go inside, there are people dressed in like monks' robes and things of that nature. I think the dichotomy of high technology and a medieval Victorian era ish aesthetic would really blend together and make. I suppose if you could make a role playing game or a movie about it, it would really set it apart, because the expectation is to go, oh, high tech starships. Of course they wear bone white silver lame outfits, jumpsuits, right, instead of wearing like um, robes that seem like they're part of, I don't know, Catholic Church or whatever. Zamora says that should be our next conversation on the list: how to plan and run an after a successful or unsuccessful coup has ended a campaign. I like that. Yeah, I like that a lot. Like, basically, it's the what happens ever after, right? Like, what happens when the PCs succeed or they fail? Like, what next? And I love stuff like that. I love it. Oh wow! Oh, you're Floridian. Okay. Death Angel says when I was 18 to 21, I would hang out at Pleasure Island. Yeah, that's where they had the nightclubs. I remember Pleasure Island. It was the 90s, so now it's called Disney Springs. I think, but I moved up to Tennessee a few years ago, so I'm not in the circles of the tourist traps anymore. Yeah, 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 yeah. For those who don't know, there, well, there there was a place called Pleasure Island, and they had like New Year's every night, essentially. I think Disney World is the company that has like 90% of all fireworks activities in the world, because they run fireworks every single evening. Yeah, it was. I remember the 90s back then. I'm a little older. I haven't been back in a long time, and I know a lot of things have changed. And you know, it's Disney. Kids are money. But yeah, you got out of the tourist trap into Tennessee. Okay, we're not too far away. We're 4 hours, 6 hours away. Um, TA says, you think you're an assassin in the world of secret assassins, but really you're just part of the staff of Assassin World next to Westworld. Ooh, ooh, that would be interesting. Now, it would hurt. I think a lot of players would get hurt, but imagine playing a role playing game and 6 sessions in, they go, "Oh yeah, by the way, you're just in a theme park. Everything you've done has been fake." That would be pretty ridiculous. Although you could play Westworld Broken, Westworld Escapes. Uh, oh no, we got a. Did we get a bot? Yeah, we got a bot for over on Twitch. Please. Hi, I want to offer promotion of your channel, viewers and followers and chatbots. The price is lower than your competitor. Whatever. We got a bot. I should have never brought up Chat GPT the other day. Let me tell y'all, it smells like garbage in the tunnels. The Epcot tunnels are bigger than the Magic Kingdom tunnels, but the smell is the same. Nasty. Deadman said, "Was that wanted? You mean I don't know. Give me more context there, D. If they could bring Walt back today, he'd auto fail a system shock die after seeing what Disney is today. Yeah, yeah, he'd fail the con check on that one. Yeah. Oh man, I remember Earth 2. I remember it was a TV show called Earth 2. Ooh. Mike says romantic entanglements equals John Wick meets Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Yep. Death Angel. I remember Terra Nova too. Different than Earth 2. Earth 2. And it was a British show called. It wasn't called Colony, but it had that in the name. Like I don't know. I want to call like the colonists or colonist regime or something like that. I can't remember. John Wick as a rogue assassin robot, nearly indestructible, and it's your job to take it down. You know that's nearly impossible without incurring grievous harm. Have fun, heroes. Yeah. Although it would be pretty embarrassing to have John Wick to be like, but I don't want to kill him. But he's a Terminator. But he's cool. But he's got the face of Keanu. I can't kill Keanu. Mm, I love it. I love it. Oh, you guys will go too fast. Oh, Deadman says can't remove the first post by someone which was empowered by spammers. Okay, I get it. Stuck on a designation name. John Wick can't come up with something that would stand for. Yeah, coming up with acronyms. Yeah, it's the John Wick. Like no, it's the assassins. Although Star Wars had assassin droids, didn't show too many of them, but yeah, they had assassin droids. Oh, yeah, you're 5 hours from Cincy. Saw my Cubbies play the Reds last year when I went to Ohio. Yep. I'm Central Ohio, so I'm about an hour and a half above Cincinnati. Mm-mm-mm. Ooh, the End King says you're a robot in a theme park sounds the same as you're in the Matrix, which is fitting given we're talking about Keanu Reeves. Yes. I think that the Westworld TV show kind of went off the rails. I think it was like smelling its own superiority. But I loved the first season of Westworld and the original Westworld movie that came out before that was pretty interesting in the sense of you have people who think they're androids who think that they're living in a real world and they're exposed to a bigger world. I see you there, Mike, and that is pretty interesting. That's pretty interesting to think like, oh, guess what? It's you're not in a modern world, you're in something else, and hey, you don't have blood, you're actually mechanical. Which I talk since this is Future Friday, and I'm a big person that's into like armchair posthumanism and transhumanism. Uh, that is one of the aspects of role playing in a game where it's like Eclipse Phase and Altered Carbon, where when you make up a player character, your body is basically just replaceable, and even your memories are editable. Your memories could be edited by computer systems or even bad actors so that you might forget 3 weeks of your past because someone, even yourself, a copy of yourself or an enemy or even an ally decided to edit that information out of your memories because it was dangerous to have, or to keep you safe, or to wake up each game session and go, wait a minute, this isn't what I look like, and things like that. Yeah, Mike says visualize John Wick in the Firefly universe, talking about the Killjoys. Yeah, I think, well, mixing it with Firefly would be like John Wick plus, far future starships plus Wild West, because the Firefly universe was kind of this Wild West aesthetic, and also, let's be honest, it was cheaper to film it that way, but they also wanted it to be like, hey, only the inner planets, the ones who won the war, had the high tech and all the silver lame and chrome and mirrors and glass, but every place else was left to, um, the terraforming was stopped and was left on its own, so everything turned to like dust and dry and things like that. So yeah, I think we could. I think there's a way for us to add like John Wick into something like that, especially if the high table are like mega corporations, governments, criminal factions that unfortunately are all working together to keep the PCs down, and maybe the player characters are AIs and human beings and computers and robots that have been like, they're basically left out with the trash. What's the movie called? The different variations. One movie is called Soldier, where literally a soldier is cast out onto a trash planet and dumped out with the trash. And there's literally people living on the planet, and periodically they would have like spaceships come by and just dump trash out of the atmosphere onto the planet. I mean, that might be the scrambling out of the lowest pits of the universe to overtake the ones who are in control. I think that'd be a great, um, outcasts into revolutionaries kind of a game. And in order to fight back, you only got so many skills, and that's pick up a gun and fight back, right? Yeah. Yep. Death Angel says like Firefly was Wild West with blasters, which kind of fits, right? Wild West and Victorian era ish kind of blended together. One just they just happened across the pond from each other. So yeah, I could see that. And let's be honest, the Wild West was like basically Victorian era meets exploration, which turned into the Wild West, because a lot of that Victorian era was left on the East Coast of the United States and kind of still exists. A lot of the architecture, historical monuments, and things of that nature. Parasail umbrellas and men wearing spats and day suits and things like that. High tops and tails and stuff still existed alongside what was necessary to move west across the United States, which is like, you know, riding spats and cowboy hats and long coats to protect you out there. So it kind of fits together. I still think it would. I still think a pseudo historical role playing game in that era would be kind of cool. Um, Mm-mm. The reason I brought up Mandalorian is a series of crossover concepts like the lone killer, yeah, paid in a rare resource such as coins and Beskar to kill or capture a vulnerable target, then protects that target and is outcast by their society. Yeah, Mike. Yeah, it actually fits pretty well. And considering how the third season of The Mandalorian ended, I think it fits in exceptionally well. A bunch of assassins that are all trying to kill each other, but then and listen, the Mandalorian culture is pretty friggin' violent. If you had to relegate one culture into being like the epitome of combat prowess, it's the Mandalorian culture, or at least the last of what we see of it. And between the infighting they have with each other, you're kind of surprised they still exist. They would have probably killed each other off if it wasn't for somebody trying to get them together. There's not too many of them numerically left, according to their own uh, their own canon, right? So yeah, outcast by their own society and has to work to become part of it again. I love it. I I love that idea. And other than a little bit more body armor, a few more high tech items like the flamethrowers. We see the jetpacks, the cable ropes. I'm sure you could add other things in there. Maybe there's scramblers. They use uh, energy shields to block weaponry and things like that. They use knives and pikes and long arms, sniper rifles and things. Yeah, it's John Wick with a slight tweak to it. I would agree with that. So yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a N King says it's amazing how popular bounty hunters are in space. Really, John Wick would fit right in. I don't know what it is about. Well, I think bounty hunting and space fits together because it space travel and the vast expanse of the void of space is like for us in the United States traveling across the West, the expansion of the Wild West, right? It's open, there's not much law, that it's very difficult to call for help. You're out there by yourself or with very limited resources and with very limited people. So I think the two blend together that way. That's why I remember the old spaghetti westerns were made by Italian directors who were enamored by the idea of the expansion through the West when the United States was settled, that you had these individuals just going out into unknown land. They didn't know they were going to come to the ocean on the other end of California. They didn't know that. They just kept walking and they looked around and went like, you know what, I'm gonna settle down right here. Um, Take a look at the show Yellowstone. It's basically the same thing, right? Uh-oh, Thomas Anderson brings up something pretty dark. What about John Wick in a Lovecraftian universe? Excuse me, John Wick versus Cthulhu cults and such. Yeah, it would listen, it wouldn't take much to put some tentacled creature at the bottom of a lot of the places John Wick went into, and people literally dying by the hundreds in front of John Wick's weapons. Who's more loyal than a cultist? We love ourselves some cults, blood sacrifice cults and stuff. Hell's yeah. Um, it would be kind of like Delta Green, given a little bit more cinematic vibe to it. Delta Green being a derivation of Call of Cthulhu. Yeah, I definitely see that. I see that. Mike says a Wild West version might have a John Wick who's hired to kill a target for a rail baron, only to discover it's a child inheritor of farmland. Some say same story, different era. I would, yeah, and then or John Wick kills the parents and the kid is still there. Ooh, we've seen that before, but right? Yeah, it kills the robber baron and the kid's there, takes the kid with him. The kid's got a bad attitude. John Wick's got to teach the kid to survive, but at the same time, it's like, I don't want to teach this child how to kill people, but the kid wants to. The Last of Us in is a very dark, extremely grounded version of a John Wick story, right? It's very post-apocalyptic. Old, grizzled, brutal gunman takes on an innocent individual, childlike in person. Yeah, Wayne's like a lot of Midwesterners seem to come here. That's a listen, come on, us Midwesterners here in the middle of flyover states, we love ourselves in role playing. I don't know what it is. I mean, we're Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, um, Wisconsin, Michigan, Iowa, Idaho, Nevada. There's a lot of us, Wyomings that are like big into role playing in Midwestern states. I'm not putting down the outside circle of the United States, the East Coast, West Coast, North Chicago's, the Texases and Florida's. So I'm not putting them aside. I'm just saying there's a lot of us in the Midwest, a lot of us. Gen Con, and Origins happening soon down in the Midwest and stuff. Yeah, kind of what me. That makes me. Sorry, my brain. Mind fuel, you guys. Damn, what's up with the mind fuel? You guys are so silly. Oh, ham radio convention. Ooh. You guys are so silly. Trying to get ahead. You too far ahead of me. Oh, Mike Rule. That's the rockabilly phone operators. I love. I don't know. I love. It, I love the fact that they're in a John Wick movie. I just don't understand where they came from. Like it's just. And I knew somebody was going to bring up the Pinkertons. I forgot about it just before this. Yeah, just don't call the Pinkertons if someone leaks your cardboard crack. Yeah. Yes, for those who don't know, um, and it's pretty ridiculous. But yes, for those who don't know, and I'm going to answer your question there, Mufa, at the very end. For those who don't know, the Pinkertons are a basically a organization, a real life organization you can pay that are like detectives. They are a private security firm. And a real individual by the name of Pinkerton created the Pinkertons back in the olden days. You know, we're talking Wild West, and the Pinkertons used to protect um, the Wells. Remember the old Wells Fargo? Today we have a bank, and you see the Wells Fargo logo, which is like a wagon train, and they would protect gold from like what is the 1850s? Thank you, there, Death Shadow. From the 1850s up until modern day. The messed up part about the Pinkertons is that they were hired to break union. They were basically hired as hired gunmen to break unions, and their claim to fame, amongst all other things, is having a literal gunfight with employees trying to fight for better working conditions. And this was back in the day before we had legal protections for employees over time and unions and things like that. There was a literal gunfight between the Pinkertons who were hired by the companies and the employees that were working that were like, we don't want to work 70-hour weeks and we want days off and we want, actual breaks and we don't want children working in mines and all that kind of stuff. And I think I think it was steel mill, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Watsy, you're part of the High Council. They gave the Pinkertons a gold coin. Hell yeah. Oh my god. Yeah, like if Watsy's like, what's a good way to improve the way the community looks at us? I know, we're gonna hire the Pinkertons, literally known for taking guns and shooting innocent people who just want a better way of life, to go collect some Magic the Gathering cards. I can't imagine what the other choices were before they hired the Pinkertons in a meeting. Like, did somebody raise their hand and go, could we just send them a letter or contact them, like call them or send them an email and say, hey, this was a mistake that we gave this to you. Hey, how about we'll give you a box of cards in exchange for taking down your video and returning those cards to it? Like, couldn't there have been another thing that they could have done? Like, did somebody go, hey, we could throw them hand grenades in their house? And someone else is like, no, we could poison them. And someone said, no, let's not be that bad. Why don't we just hire the Pinkertons? Oh, man. Watsy, Watsy. Here I am trying to defend you. And here you go, putting your foot in your mouth. Damn it. Oh, man. Tom TA, what is that living flesh pit story too? I don't know where that's at. Yeah. Yeah, Wayne says they shot unarmed people. They sure did. I think in its time, it was like the first mass casualty event. I think maybe I want to say it was between 8 to 15 people. I can't remember off the top of my head. I guess I could type it in, but oh, the Mystery Flesh Pit National Park. That's what you're thinking of. Yep. Death Angel says they were notorious for being thugs. Carnegie was notorious for hiring them. Yep. They tried to summon Pumpkinhead, but he was busy. Pumpkinhead's like, sorry, I'm here to, going after some teenagers having premarital sex. And oh darn it. Okay, well, let's go to Pinkertons anyway. Did did you hear two of the higher ups in the security area working for Watsy actually worked for the Pinkertons? I did not know that. Let's do this here for a minute. Pinkertons. Oops, let's go to Pinkertons. Detective agency. Let's go here. Bum, 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 Sorry. I know it's not ASMR, but Let's go ahead and do this. Well, thank you, Z. Z says, gotta call it. Thank you for all the wonderful ideas for the week. My game group is stoked, and I gotta head off to work. Oh, I think all of you gotta head off to work. Yeah, let me leave that up here. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. Now I'm wondering how Dream Demons could be Freddy Krueger versus John Wick. Yeah. Pinkertons, here we go. Private security group, guard, and detective agency established around 1850 in the United States by Scottish-born American Cooper Allen Pinkerton and Chicago attorney Edward Rucker as the Northwestern Police Agency, which later became Pinkerton and Company, and finally the Pinkerton National Detective Agency. By the way, this was before what we would modern day consider police forces. For those who hate socialism, uh, police, fire, trash removal, all those things are pretty social things that we now have today that we need, because at the time we didn't have an actual national police. Like, we didn't have National Guard, we didn't have state troopers, we didn't have local police, we didn't have FBI that's established today. You had to pay for certain types of protections, and this was one of the, instead of paying like a few guys you knew down at the corner that had rifles, this was like an official company that hired paid riflemen, and was known as the Pinkertons. Um, the Pinkerton National Detective Agency hired women and minorities from its founding because they were useful as spies, a practice uncommon at the time. That's actually kind of cool. Kind of nasty, but kind of cool. At the height of their power, the Pinkerton Detective Agency was the largest private law enforcement organization in the world. Following the Civil War, the Pinkertons began conducting operations against organized labor. Yep, during the labor strikes of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, businesses hired the Pinkerton Agency to infiltrate unions, supply guards, keep strikers and suspected unionists out of factories, and recruit goon squads. Yep, to intimidate workers, and so on and so forth, until all that stuff became illegal itself. In the United States, a goon squad is a group of criminals or mercenaries commonly associated with either pro-union violence or anti-union violence, though they may be employed in other situations as well. In the case of pro-union violence, a goon squad may be formed by union leaders to intimidate others. Stuff. Yeah. Yep. Andrew Carnegie Steel. Yeah. Yep. Sorry. Just had to do it. And let me throw myself back up here again. All right, guys, we've come to the end. Got to get out of here. What you have to say after that? WotC sent out cards from the next release by accident. Yep, and the person who received the cards shared images of the cards. Probably unwittingly, right? And even if unwittingly, they didn't steal the cards. The cards were sent to them, I believe, by a distributor by accident. So WotC didn't directly send it to them. The cards have to already be printed and ready to release by a certain date. So they have to make the cards first, and the distributor released them. And I think it was only the difference of a one word. It was something like the word aftermath was in it, and the distributor didn't realize the word aftermath meant it was a different set of cards. You know, talking about John Wick in the Supernatural earlier, I think it could be incorporated quite easily. If you really piss off the council, they get desperate. Yeah, they start demon summoning, right? Yeah, to stop your ass killing them, or vice versa. They start summoning demons, and you're like, we got to kill these dudes. Yeah, I saw they were shredding cards too, and someone at the shredder took pics that people like Hatcher could figure out what they were up to by the bits they could still see of the cards. Yep. I mean, it's their property. They can shred cards if they want to. I mean, it's a waste, but sure. Until the Secret Service was created, they protected the president, including Lincoln. Obviously, they failed at that one. Ooh, too early. I love it. Yeah. One would wonder if they failed or just got a better offer. Oh shit! Ow! Yeah, maybe. Yeah, Death Angel says illegal, which is why they harassed that poor guy's elderly neighbors and made his wife cry. Stuck their foot in the door to prevent her from closing it, etc. Yeah. Mm-mm-mm. Yep. Yeah, name was very similar, but I don't play Magic the Gathering, but it was an expansion to an expansion that just came out. Yeah, I think it was a mistake, which I'm thinking, why wouldn't it's pretty ridiculous that you don't just like contact an individual who put up a video, who has contact information to go, A, cease and desist. Hey, can you take the video down? And oh, since you're a multi-million dollar slash billion dollar industry, offer the guy a box of cards and go, hey, listen, sorry, this was a mistake. Hey, when the expansion does come out, how about we allow you to be one of the first to, we invite you to in or something. They could have done this a very, very schmooze this over with what, a couple $1,000s easy. Would have been cheaper. It would have been cheaper to send a person with a box of cards to their house and invite them to be interviewed, to take a look at the cards as they literally come off the machines or whatever, than it would have been to send the Pinkertons, excuse me, Pinkertons. Yeah. Like Destiny said, like I said, they could have done it totally different and made the guy famous and still look good. Yep. Why would you? What? What? You could have gave this person a plane ticket, buy a plane ticket, $1,000, hotel stay, another $2,000 with food and travel expenses. So say $3,000 plus some cards and some swag, say $5,000. You could have made this person's day with $5,000 and look like the hero by going, if you take the video down or at least delay the video, we'd love to invite you into how we make the cards, some of the people, designers that come up with the new cards and for the new expansion. And we love to have you be part of the new expansion thing for our whatever, right? $5,000 instead of paying what, like, I don't know, 10, 15, $20,000 for these people, whatever. Stupid. He's a mega collector, had over 1 million Magic the Gathering cards. Do you think this person has Magic the Gathering cards signed by the creators of the cards, which they could have solved with one weekend stay in an airline ticket? Really? Whatever. People are stupid. People are absolutely ridiculous nowadays. Oh my God. Check out the Side Scrollers channel yesterday. Talked about this. Yeah, that man. Okay, all right, I'll take it. Side Scrollers channel. Okay. Anyway, guys, we come to the end. I'm going off about the Pinkertons and people being absolutely positively. I can't imagine that the hiring the Pinkertons was the best choice in a. Oh my God. Oh man. Death Angel Shadow's like, yeah, if Watsy was a person with a 6-shooter, they would have emptied their barrel into their right foot at this point because the first shot wasn't good enough, right? Oh man. Anyway, let me get out of here. You guys have a great one. Have a great weekend. We're going to talk about this and many other things next week. We're going to go in the chat GPT and talk about the state of the community. I've stayed away from a lot of WotC news, Magic the Gathering news, all that kind of stuff. So let's get back into that a little bit. That seems to be something that people are interested in, at least in the videos. I've gotten like triple views just because talking about like the OSR and the community. And so let's talk about that next week. Let's kind of diverge away a little bit from that and talk about upcoming events, news, those kind of things. So anyway, guys, yeah. Wait, let me say it correctly. You have our cards and love our products. You are excommunicado. Yeah, exactly, right? Oh, you are excommunicado. Oh man. Oh, thanks, dear Shadow. Thank you very much. Like, share, subscribe. I never asked for people to do that. Maybe if I had a YouTube channel that I was trying to grow, maybe I should actually try to do that. Yeah. Anyway, guys, have a great one. I will see thee later. Peace.